Alright, so this is the first stage of day 2. This is going to be the day 2 complete breakdown video. If you recall from the last installment, I told myself after day 1, after having some issues hitting steel and just putting up a lot of Charlies and stuff, that my mission for today was pretty much simply to use a little bit more sight confirmation that I think I need on all the steel, and more or less just, act like I'm shooting minor. Try to put the fact that I have major going for me out of my head. Just stay really relaxed, be visually precise, just put the shots in the middle of the target. Don't worry about trying to, go faster or strategize really specifically just because of the fact that I have the major scoring going for me. Just try to basically do whatever I know how to do and be a little bit more conservative, if you will. So we'll watch this first stage and we'll see if I do that. Well, what do you think, audience? I think I counted 6 pickup shots on steel. They're all relatively far, I guess you could say, if I want to give myself any credit that I don't really deserve. They're all US poppers that are, generally speaking, these ones in the back are about 20 yards, this one's about 10 yards. The other activator on the other side over here is about 10 yards. But overall, way too many pickup shots on steel. Still just not being visually precise enough, still not letting myself see enough on a stage like this, and it causes me some problems. So let's watch through specifically and we'll break stuff down as we go. This whole top section is pretty much fine, in my assessment. Get out of here real good, come into this spot, gun up, shoot into this spot, pickup shot there. In retrospect, a couple of guys shot at this head box here, just placed 2 shots in the head box so they could save the transitioning around, which could have been clever. I don't really think that part's that important. Mainly, it's the pickup shot on steel that's hurting me. And you see, again, right, like I'm coming into this position, and I'm shooting a shot right here. Right there, the first shot comes, and I literally have 1 foot on the ground at a 20-yard popper. Like, I'm just sending hopers at it. I'm just trying to get away with shooting with way too little sight confirmation on really demanding targets, just trying to get lucky on them. And that's how it goes, right? It ends up tacking on about 3/4 of a second at best, maybe 2 seconds at the worst between all those extras. Out of this position, do a straight transition into a side open target over here in this direction. And you can see there's over here, you can't really see what's going on just based on how it's filmed, but there's a plate here and there's a swinger that comes out here. And the swinger has 2 head boxes on it that are like this, like right on top of each other, right? So basically what's going on is I'm going to whack 1 shot on the popper, the swinger comes out, I take 2 shots at the head box, I shoot some stuff over here, swinger comes back out again, I shoot another 2 at the head box, and from that point I'll assess to see if I need another pass. Okay, so I'm going the wrong direction, into this spot, pass, open target pass, then another pass there. Okay, so that actual engagement on the swinger, I guess, was fine. That's a sort of difficulty target where, you can stand to gain a lot if you leave a risk out there as far as not being certain if you got your hits. You'll stand to pick up about a whole second on the field, but if the odds of not having all your holes in that thing are very high. So what I pretty much told myself was, like, if you don't see perfection, if you're not absolutely satisfied with everything you saw in the first 4 shots, then just take another pass and put another 1 shot on each one or whatever. But the main issue here, of course, right, is the extra shots on steel. We'll play this through one more time. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want to be optimistic, you can count on every pickup shot on steel costing you about like 0.3 to 0.4, right? If you just think about it, like just to take another aim shot on the same target with 0 transition added is going to be, at the absolute best, 0.3, maybe 0.4. most likely, right, sort of shooting a shot, making an assessment. If you don't call your shot perfectly, you're shooting a shot, making an assessment on what happened, and then re-engaging. So it's usually more than that. It's usually more like 0.6 or even more than that if you start to transition off of it. So, I mean, you do the rough math, I probably, at the absolute best, have 2 whole seconds of time tacked onto that stage just in pickup shots on steel. Could be even worse than that. I'm not going to use, I don't use, like, any of the fancy timer sequences or anything. I could look at the actual details as far as the shot clock at the bottom of the bar, but it's like, what really matters is you shot 6 shots on steel, and that's completely unacceptable. So, strategic adjustments going into the next stage. We'll talk about that when we break down the next stage. All right, so we have a little speed shoot here. Again, there's 2, basically what's going on before I play it. There's a popper here. I believe one of these poppers activated like the side in the middle, or maybe they both activated the side in the middle, each respective side in the middle. But anyway, the sequence I end up going with is right, left on the poppers, and I believe 1, 2, 3 across. So it's right, left on the steel, then right, left on the paper. Knowing the issues I'm having, right, I'm telling myself, visually, you need to see actual green and black together on the popper before you're going to get on the trigger. Because if you don't, you know what's going to happen. Don't try to go with confirmation 2. Don't just try to send a hoper at it or see just a little splash of green on the thing. That's not going to work. You know for a fact you have to see a black, maybe even like straight up confirmation 3, still front sight on the target, and pick an exact spot on the plate. So we'll see what happens. So as far as engaging the steel, I did what I told myself I was going to do, right? I actually was wrong about the order there. You see I obviously shot those in the opposite direction. But I hit both these steel with a real nice delay on each one. Whack, whack. Really want to make sure I drive those down. From that point, I was actually the first one up on the stage, so I wasn't totally sure what the best strategy was. So you see, right, I shot actually the middle one, and I should have definitely squared myself up on the other side of the box so that I could whack this on the outside here. And you see I wait a really long time. I even sort of start to lean my body over like this to try to open this up when this bobber comes back to the inside. I'll play this one more time. And I have to wait a really long time. And of course, then from that point, right, I'm just doing confirmation 3 shooting, trying to shoot at what is effectively, partials on all these really far targets back here. Right, very tight shooting as far as the shot difficulty. Really conservative playing just because I wasn't really sure what the play was going to be. Right. Otherwise, not too bad. Starting to feel like I'm getting my legs under me a little bit with the steel just by shooting 2 in a row without missing. Actually doing myself what I told myself I was going to do. So moving on to the next stage. This next one doesn't have any steel at all. It's a very flowy, relatively high hit factor stage where you're pretty much keeping the gun mounted the whole time and just trying to shoot medium difficulty targets on the move as you move down in this direction, as you could probably guess by looking at the stage. So let's watch this all the way through. You see a pretty clean performance there. There's not really much meat left on that bone, rather. So the only places where I knew this could go wrong was, of course, like, keeping things tidy, not getting trigger freeze on this stack right here. Getting into this window over here. I'm keeping the gun totally up and aimed. I'm just going to react to seeing, green on brown on the spot through when I can clear through this wall. Straight transition over to this array here. Again, straight transition from the top of this target to this target. And then you see, right, the gun comes down just ever so slightly right here, just to take a couple power steps to do a drive off of here. And as soon as I clear around the edge of this wall here, I'm back on the trigger. You're just watching my head as I get through this array, right, especially where these wider transitions. I'm just trying to be super, super visually precise so that I don't have to try to be aggressive. I'm just finding the spots and just letting the gun come to me. You can really see right there, right, how my head is leading the gun. This was all alphas. Pretty sure this was a stage winner, pretty close. So this was another really good run. Moving on to the next stage. We have another stage here that's all paper, from what I recall, but some tighter partials, especially over in this quadrant of the stage over here, which is the first position I'm going to go to. Basically, you can choose to shoot from this position over here. You can shoot 2 targets back here and then kind of work your way into this spot here, which is what I chose to do. So we're going to watch this all the way through. Alright, so pretty quick. Not a lot of meat left in the bone time-wise. What went wrong, though, right, shooting into this position, all the footwork, all the positioning and everything is honestly perfect, right? So I'm coming in, I'm shooting on this partial right here. I transition to this tuxedo in the back. Right, I told myself if I didn't see absolute perfection on this guy, I was just going to send 3 on it. I transition into this spot here, and I aim a little bit too low, right? Like I just look directly at the A zone. And if you zoom in on this target here, you can see it's another half occluded partial. So if this is the A box like this, right, you have white up to about like here. So you got about half an A zone to shoot at right there. I told myself going into this, right, like my cue from yesterday was just pretend like you're shooting minor. Just aim anywhere where it's possible to get alphas. Just aim hard for the A's and shoot conservatively. Try to just do what feels natural. And I did that, but I think I must have tensed my hand down or something as I came into this spot, right? So I shoot 1, 2, 3 on the tuxedo. I come into this spot, and that shot just goes low right there. And I didn't call it at all. It clipped the edge of the line right on the no-shoot. And that's honestly just a strategy problem where you should be aiming at a minimum at the top of the A box or in the Alpha Charlie line on these especially in these faster paced stages like that. The shots were like right together, just not at all in the right spot on the targets. It's really important that you look directly at the precise spot you want to hit, because your rounds are pretty much going to go wherever you look, for better or worse, as I'm learning right there. Cruising through these nice and slow. You see these nice, I come into here, I'm still doing these braking steps as I come across, trying to not get too far ahead of myself. My feet are, look at my feet right there, right? They're like right together. I'm doing some sort of like a hitch step, and I do a really big lunge out. The second that foot breaks comes down, and I have that dwell time I need for my foot taking off here until it gets to right here. Right, I have all that dwell time where my sights aren't going to bounce, and I use that to engage this target over here. And then I just sort of work my way into this last position to wrap up the stage. So racked up another penalty. This was a really, really frustrating point in the match because I was starting to get a couple really good stages under my belt here. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting, the natural rhythm that I want. And I'm just, the strategy adjustments that I'm making are just not quite working perfectly. So I resolve at this point, right, I'm going to try to maintain that relaxation. I'm going to try to just do what feels natural, but just double down, be more deliberate as far as, being visually diligent and looking at the exact spots I want to hit. And don't blanket statement, just treat it like you're shooting minor, because that does require you to take risks to shoot for more risky shots around partials and things like that, and that's what burned me on this stage. So going into the next stage, trying to build on some of those errors and make things happen a little bit better. So this is the biggest stage of the day. Again, remembering from what we just talked about, right, I'm trying to be really, really particular, especially on the partial targets, about aiming at a super specific spot and then just only shooting when my sights make it to the spot, right? Not thinking about it like I'm going to shoot in any sort of a mode. I'm just trying to really rely heavily on my visualization. So we'll watch what happens here. All right, so you'll see there's not a lot of meat on the bone there, again, time-wise, which is good, right? There's only 2 plates, hitting both the first shot, which is good. Starting off the draw here, whip the gun out. I have a stack, at a partial stack, a double stack target with a partial on the top about 12 yards away. Address those at both about the same speed, right? I'm just shooting like, confirmation 2 on both of them because I know I can get away with it. Whack this guy right here, same pacing pretty much. Drop out of this position. I chose to take these static just because I didn't want to give away any points trying to reverse in this direction here. Coming into this spot, you can't really see these just based on how low these were. I'm going to shoot these here, here. Hold on. It's not keeping up with me. Here, here, and here in that order, right? So I can't see this bottom target until it opens up through the bottom of this window. So it looks like I'm aiming for a long time, but I'm just waiting for the target to open up. And coming into this spot here, like this wasn't really necessarily how I expected this footwork to work out. but I'm stable enough, and I'm kind of like moving my head through the port, right? And the exit out of here is clean enough. This is the sort of exact situation where you would want to use a drop step when you're in this compromised position where basically your actual, your center of gravity isn't actually over, where your feet are distributed. So you're going to redesign that by dropping a foot to the outside to get moving. Okay, so moving on. Cooking through here as hard as I can, right, as I'm getting around this corner. The second I break this wall section, right, this target opens up. So you see instantly as I get there, right, my hand's coming to the gun right here. I'm trying to get the gun up to my eye line as I'm coming into this spot, and I'm starting shooting by right about here. Right, again, this was the sort of the position where I'm just trying to keep my weight flowing around, so the getting narrow and doing the drop step out of here probably wasn't specifically necessary. It just felt comfortable, so I did it. And that's not really a reason why I like to do things, so I'm critical of that, but I don't know that it necessarily hurt me. And coming into this spot here, I'm shooting in this order, open target, pretty tight partial, as you can see that's around 12 or 13 yards, this plate. And then I'm going to do a super wide transition all the way around to here as I take a step up with my right leg. And I'm going to shoot in the opposite direction, open, steel. You can actually see the steel right there if I clear all this off. There's an open target here, this steel, and then a couple really deep targets at about 25 to 30 yards. So we'll back this up, play it through. Confirmation 3, 1, 3, 3, 3. Trying to just put those shots exactly where I need them because this is an average factor stage, right? So I need all those raw points whenever I can get them. Overall, the only thing I could really criticize about this run is, basically just doing what's comfortable as far as getting really high and floaty in some of these positions, especially here and here. I don't really know that necessarily costs me time. It's just I don't like to do things that are just stylish. I like to do things because they're actually helpful. So I'm somewhat critical of that. Not bad overall. Not bad. This was actually a pretty good run, both in terms of my assessment at the time, and as far as how it held up against the squad. I was happy again to get another good stage under my belt. This is where I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. No major errors. No pile of drop points. Just a relatively clean plan. A visualization program that I pretty much executed on. Not much to be unhappy about. So I got 2 or 3 more smaller stages to end out this day, which we'll go to next. So in this case, there was 2 smaller stages in the same bay. I shot this one first. It's a little speed shoot where basically you'll sort of see what's happening, but I'll just play it and then I'll explain it after here. Step back to the back right corner, activator, open target, drop turner, activator, target, dropper, open. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Of course, you can see in particular because both these droppers expose twice, right? So there's about 1,000 different ways you could go about doing this, and there was a lot of discussion on how to do it. I chose to do it what I felt was a fairly conservative way. So in this first array here, right, watch my head. I intended to come back to this position right here, right, to snap my head immediately around to look at this exact spot where I want my foot to go. And you see that doesn't happen, and because of that, I'm sort of like doing this like a lot of shuffling around. I don't like doing like I talked about in the first day's video, just sort of doing this by memorizing how things feel. And that's sort of what happens here. And I'm a little bit cognizant of it and uncomfortable the whole time. Have a pickup shot on this popper right off the jump, probably because of it. And I'm sort of moving my head around this position, shooting that right as it opens up. And then I'm going to do a straight transition from there as to whatever degree I can, right, into this popper here. And I'm going to go popper, partial, dropper, open, okay? The other option I saw a lot of people do was they shot basically both these targets in between. So they shot this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, not necessarily in that order, but they jammed as much stuff in that sequence as they could. I thought it seemed like a good plan to double down this popper, whack this guy, and then it'll be a really short, easy transition without any walls in your way to open up the dropper. And that seemed like a safer plan. And if you look at, where this target's at when I'm actually engaging it, you see it's just starting to turn, right? Which is what I want. And the other way that people did it, in a lot of cases, they were shooting this just as it closed up. Like, they were shooting it, if you're watching, like, wham, wham, like right as the thing goes away, which to me is really dangerous for the fact that you're not going to probably come back and take another whack at that thing. If you shoot 2 shots at it, there's a good chance you're not going to know even if they aren't there. And I don't want to do that. If I can get the same timing job done and have more safety, if I'm shooting at it here, and I have I don't see something I don't like, I'm gonna know it, and I have a lot of time before it closes up, all the way till now, pretty much, which is good to me. If I could choose doing the same timing with less risk, that's what I'm gonna do. So watch this through once more. Pickup shot. See, the actual pacing on this is pretty much the same the whole way through, right? Which is a little bit weird. And in all honesty, all these targets are pretty much the same difficulty all the way through. There's some partials that are close, but I mean, you still have to aim to stitch the shots right on the AC line like you want to. Not a bad run. Totally acceptable. Let's get on to the next one. So in this one, there's a lot of really, really tight shots. You'll see what happens when you watch it through the first time here, hopefully. So you can't quite see what's happening, actually. But what's going on is there's a tuxedo target that's right in line with these down here. And as you can see just by looking at this, that's probably about 15 or 16 yards away. So when I get to this first position here, couple pickup shots there. So my plan was to try to do this as safely as possible and just not put any extra shots on. Obviously, you see that's not totally what happens. I told myself on both the tuxedo especially, I'm like, if you don't see absolute perfection on the first two shots, just send another one, right? The plan is basically call two perfect shots, and if that doesn't happen, the contingency is just to automatically throw another. So that's what happens here. Straight transition into this target here to whatever extent I can. You can see, obviously, that my head is not in line with this port. So, I have to wait to open it up a little bit until I can actually see the target. Steel. Pretty aggressive engagement speed on this middle target here. So after I pick up the shot on the play, you see I throw another shot back at the middle target. Whack that guy. You see I do a transition from this target, right? You see my head goes from here straight down to this spot where I want my foot to go here because I do not want to mess up this lean to hit this last spot. And as I'm coming out, the gun's coming out, and I'm going to do the same engagement process I described earlier. It's a little bit weird, right? Looking at this in this right-hand lean, it looks like I'm a lot more, physically congested. The gun's bucking around a lot, and that probably contributed to needing a third shot, honestly. But that's fine. Not perfect in terms of the nitpicking of this stage, but I survived it. This is a really, really risky stage. A lot of people blew themselves out of day two on this stage just on account of shooting extra shots, tunneling into their sights, jamming shots all around the brown on those tuxedos or having pickup shots, whatever the case may be. So I wasn't tremendously unhappy to get out of this with just a survival run, even though the actual fundamentals don't look that solid. Next stage, last one. All right, so I come at you from the comfort of the studio. I said next video. I don't actually have a copy of the next video. For whatever reason, it didn't get recorded. Basically, it was like a 12 or 14 round speed shoot where you loaded off a barrel and shot some targets. So it wasn't particularly interesting anyways, not a travesty to lose it. But I did want to synopsize my thoughts in terms of the strategy is going into the end of this match because it's obviously relevant with the last stage of the last day. So going into the next day, I knew I was about, 25 points down. So the plan was basically like, hey, I know most likely the last section, and you'll see when it gets posted, was extremely technically demanding, very risky. For the most part, there was not any stages where there was really any significant gain to be made by taking any risks or doing anything crazy. There was stages that were super, super risky and hard where you would not want to do anything except your level best. And there were stages that were fast-paced where the separation was not going to be very significant. So that wasn't a great place to pick up points. I lobbied on the fact that I was going to be disciplined and not do anything stupid as far as making mistakes on the risky stages. Just try to survive them all and let other people sort of claw for the top and make mistakes. And so we'll see how that goes when we get into the next video. I just wanted to synopsize my thoughts as far as that went. I was happy more or less with the adjustments that I made into this day. Started off really rough with having a lot of problems on steel, relaxing a little bit more, just sort of doing what I knew how to do, and being really, really visually diligent as far as following my visualization was seeming to work. So I was going to stay on that program for sure. Stay tuned for the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one as well, and I'll see you next time.